We'll go with that one. Why did the turkey cross the road? To prove he wasn't chicken. Oh, come on. Why did the dinosaur cross the road? Chickens and turkeys weren't around yet. Why did the bus driver cross the road? He was running to sign up for Triple P and Epic. Oh, come on, that was good. Oh, all right, it wasn't good. Clearly I need to watch your jokes more often. Why did the priest and Levite cross the road? That's the question, isn't it? They were in a hurry? Maybe they were. Welcome, my friends, to the parable of the Good Samaritan, or as I've liked to call it this morning, thoughts and prayers and how not to be a chicken. Now, the story of the Good Samaritan is one of the best known from the Bible, I think. Wherever you go, people have heard it. And even if people aren't really familiar with the Bible, they've probably heard the words Good Samaritan. Good Samaritan is sort of gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling, doesn't it? Everyone wants to be a good Samaritan. Everyone wants to be the good guy. We read the story and it's like, oh yeah, the Samaritan, he's the hero. And that priest and that Levite, they're definitely the bad guys, yeah? But you know, hundreds of years of history have changed the way we see this, because in the first century, that's not how Jesus' audience would have heard it for the first time. Did you know that? It's interesting when we dig into scripture what we discover. The words Good Samaritan to Jesus' audience and the religious scholar to whom he was speaking would have been a massive oxymoron. Do you know what an oxymoron is? Organised chaos, gentle exercise. You know, where the two things are like not. For the Jews, a good Samaritan was just not going to happen. There was nothing good about Samaritans. They were considered outcasts, half-breeds, heretics. They believed in the Jewish God, but they didn't follow everything the right way and they didn't worship in the right place, and oh no, we don't associate with them. And the Samaritans felt much the same way about the Jews. So to have a Samaritan as the hero of the story is kind of radical. And it's hard for us to wrap our heads around that in 21st century Australia. So if you'll indulge me for a moment, let's consider we're hearing the story for the first time, okay? We're hearing the parable of the Good Samaritan of Bris Vegas. Okay, so let me introduce you to my friend Dazza. Sorry in advance to any Darrens in the building. No person's resemblance and is content. Yeah, it's all unintended. No offence will be intended. Blah. Anyway, Dazza is walking down the road. He's going to his mate's place for the barbie before the big game. Okay, and on the way, his ute pulls up and it's tooling down the road. Ute pulls up at a red light. Oh my goodness! A bunch of yobbos carjack him. King hit him and leave him in the gutter. He's in a world of hurt. This is not good. But wait, there's some people coming down the road. 1, 2, 3. Maybe they'll help. Oh, look, the first guy's a Broncos supporter. Surely he's going to help a mate. What? He's on his phone and he walked across the road and didn't even stop. I don't believe it. The second guy is a Red supporter. I think. Yeah. No. Oh my goodness. He came over and looked and he walked away. What's going on with the world? What about the third guy? What's he doing? Oh no. No. There'll be no help here. That's Paul Gallen. Oh my goodness. What? Wait. Paul Gallen has stopped. Paul Gallen is calling the AMBO. Paul Gallen is taking him to hospital. Paul Gallen is the Good Samaritan of Bris Vegas. There you go, laugh it up. Toddy, that was for you, but you know if we were in Sydney, I'd do it the other way around, don't you? And I am a Broncos supporter, so apologies for my friends in the building. I'm sure they wouldn't do that. But do you see the point? This is exactly what Jesus is trying to get across. Don't assume that the bad guy can't be the hero. The bad guy can't be the hero. And sometimes, sadly, the good guys that we think are going to do the right thing wind up crossing the road. Thoughts and prayers and, yeah, we'll send somebody from the next town. Good Samaritan? Why Did the priest and the Levite cross the road? I don't know. Maybe in their hearts they were asking the same question that the scholar was asking Jesus. Who's my neighbour? Is that my neighbour? Do we ask that question? Who's my neighbour? Because it's actually the wrong question, and Jesus doesn't actually answer it. If you read the parable carefully, read the story again, Jesus doesn't actually tell the scholar who his neighbour is. Because what the scholar's trying to do is put some limits here. In the ancient culture, the idea of neighbour and non-neighbour was well defined. There were my people and not my people, my tribe and not my tribe, the Jews and the Samaritans, the ones that are mine and the one I don't need to worry about. And Jesus is driving home the point that no, you're coming at it from the wrong angle. As one commentary I read said, the lawyer asks who his neighbour is in the hope that some people are not. And Jesus doesn't answer that question. He replies, just be a neighbour whenever you are needed and realise neighbours can come from surprising places. Amen. The question that they should have been asking, the question we can be asking today is not who is my neighbour, but what kind of neighbour am I going to be? And when Jesus put that to the scholar, who's the true neighbour here in this story, mate? The scholar couldn't even bring himself to say Samaritan, but he got the right answer, the one who demonstrated kindness and mercy. What does that mean? To demonstrate kindness and mercy? What was the differentiating stuff between the first two guys and the third guy in this parable? Because they started out, they all had something in common. Jesus said, which of the three who saw this man was the one who was his true neighbour? So they all saw him, they all knew he was there. But clearly there's seeing and there's seeing, isn't there? And so that's the first thing that a true neighbour does. A true neighbour sees like Jesus. And that's why the Good Samaritan was a good neighbour. He saw the person, not the problem. I suspect that the priest and the Levite are walking down the road and they see a situation. They see a crisis. They see a concern. They see an inconvenience. They see a deeply worrying situation. Sounds like a politician. They see a problem, perhaps even a victim, but not a person. Where the Bible is full of examples of the way Jesus saw. The world looks at Levi and they see a tax collector. Jesus sees a disciple. The world looks at Zacchaeus, they see a thief and a cheat. Jesus sees a generous host. The friends of the man who was paralysed, who brought him down through the roof, I reckon the world looked and saw a repair bill. But Jesus saw loyalty and faith. The woman who hung on the edge of his robe, the crowd are going, oh, she's unclean, go away. Jesus says, no, daughter, receive your healing. And as the widow of Nain walks out the gates of her city with the body of her only son, the crowd sees a funeral. Jesus sees a resurrection and a family restored. Because true neighbours see like Jesus and they see the person. And when you see the person, you're able to do the next thing and care like Jesus. And the Pharisee and Levite weren't able to do this because they only saw the problem. They could only see the way it affected them. Their hearts were not able to be open to empathy, to feel the pain of the man in need. But the Samaritan got this. He saw, truly saw, and he cared, truly cared. He was moved with tender compassion. And again, this is like Jesus. All the examples that Jesus saw before, Levi, Zacchaeus, the widow, Jesus had compassion on them when he saw them as people. And in Matthew and in Mark, the story is told of how the crowds kept coming after Jesus right in his face all the time. He's trying to find time to rest, but even in the midst of his own needs. Because Jesus saw, Jesus cared. He was moved with compassion when he saw the crowds that were in such need and were like sheep without a shepherd, the Bible says. A true neighbour truly sees, a true neighbour truly cares, and a true neighbour truly acts. And they act practically. Did you like the list of, it was really good in the Passion Translation, all the things the neighbour did. He got up close, he didn't stay at a distance. He triaged. He bandaged those wounds and got him cleaned up, and he got him out of the bad situation to safety. He sourced extra help and provided funds to help provide for the man in need. And Jesus also is totally practical. He didn't keep people at arm's length. This is the Son of God come to earth. He could have just, come and done his thing and preached the gospel and made everyone fall trembling at his feet, and people did, but not because he kept them at a distance. They fell at his feet because he came close to them, put his arm around them, touched the leper, embraced the hurting, got friends alongside the sinner, the outcast. He fed the hungry, he healed the sick, he rescued his disciples from a storm when the boat's about to sink. And I love the story in Matthew 17. If you've never seen this, it's a really quirky little tale. Peter is getting in trouble with the Pharisees. They're telling him off because he hasn't paid the temple tax. And so Peter says to Jesus, they want us to pay the temple tax. And Jesus says, it doesn't sound like a very cool thing, but we don't want to offend them, so go down and catch a fish. First fish you find, in its mouth is going to be enough money to pay the temple tax for you and me. How amazing is that? This is so practical. God cares about all the small stuff in our life as well as the big stuff. And a true neighbour acts in the same way, practically. Why does a true neighbour do this? Because they know what Jesus knew. The Son of Man, that was his purpose here. He came not to be served, but to serve others. And then to give away his life in exchange for the many who are held hostage. Not only to do all those practical things, not only to see the person, to care, to do, but to die for you and for me. And we may not be called on to become martyrs and die for those who are held hostage, unlike some of our brothers and sisters in other places in the world who might be. It may not be such a bad thing if some of us were challenged a bit more, I reckon, but in our comfortable Western society, we still have to learn to die to ourselves. We have to learn to die to our comfort, to our convenience, to our opinions and our attitudes and our need to be right all the time, even to our own reputation, if we're going to be true neighbours. Rather than the cross the road, thoughts and prayers, catch you later. I know who I want to be. I want to be a true neighbour. And I'm pretty sure you do too. You know why? I've been hearing about it all morning. I know that we care about each other in this place. I've heard the stories. Look at what we've been able to accomplish together. Isn't that awesome? It is. And so I know that you want to be a true neighbour. But like Donna, I feel challenged that I don't want to settle just for what we did yesterday. I want to be a true neighbour today, and I want to be a true neighbour tomorrow. And that means I need to keep looking at how I see, how I feel, how I act. Because it's easy to get sidetracked and it's easy to get desensitised when we live in a world that is so full of pain, isn't it? Thoughts and prayers. Now, look, I'm not dissing thoughts and prayers because that's actually where it starts. And prayer is definitely not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But it's the start. It's not the be-all and end-all. It's the impetus to see and to act, to see and to feel. James puts it like this: learning the right words and not doing anything is pointless. God talk without God acts is outrageous nonsense. Gee, that's harsh. But it's true. And I have to pay attention to it every day, not just here in my community that I know and love, but wherever I go. Because like Jesus reminded the scholar, it's not about us and them. It's not about Jews and Samaritans or blues and reds or whatever. It's about me being the best neighbour I can be wherever Jesus takes me. And if I want to do that, I need to work on keeping my eyes and my heart and my hands where Jesus wants them to be. First thing I need to do, I need to pay attention to God's voice if I want to see like a true neighbour. Jesus promised that if we listen to his teaching, more understanding will be given to us. And gee, I need it. I don't know about you. I don't want to be like a person who just listens and it goes in one ear and out the other. I want Jesus to keep my eyes sharp. Because it's easy for them to glaze over when we look at our world. Sometimes it's easy to glaze over when we look at the person next to us. I don't want to be like that. I want to pay attention to God's voice in the Bible and in prayer. And when the Holy Spirit says, wait, listen. And then I want it to motivate me to really care. When it comes to the heart, it's easy to fall into two ends of the spectrum. Either you block it all out and you keep a nice big wall up and you don't care about anything because it's too hard, it's too uncomfortable, it's too painful. I've been there. Most of us have been there at some point. On the other hand, sometimes we care a lot and we're overwhelmed by the pain and we just don't know what to do and it's all too hard and we just get crushed. And I've been there too. But I'd like to be in the middle where God's love is in charge. Because his love empowers me. We love because he first loved us. That's why I wrote that. Because it's true. His love empowers us to fulfill his law, to love him, to love each other as we carry each other's troubles. God's love sensitizes our hearts when they're hard, and it bears them up when we're crumbling so that we can care like a true neighbour. So I want to care, his love's in charge. And if I want to act, if I want to be that practical Good Samaritan, I want to be part of God's solutions. We've already heard some fantastic examples of what that might look like here today. And I think it has a lot to do with the questions we ask. Because sometimes it's hard to know what to do. You ask somebody, are you okay? Can I help? And if you're on the other end of that question, sometimes it's so hard to respond, you don't even know how to respond, and it's easy just to go, nah, I'm all okay. Isn't it? Yeah. Let's ask better questions. When Are You OK Day rocked around, someone put out a really smart post about the next question to ask and better ways that you can ask, are you okay? Rather than asking closed questions where you can just answer yes or no, ask open ones. How are you feeling about this that I know you're concerned about? What part of this could I help you with this week? When can I call you to see how you're going? What part of that might I help to fund? Who can I call on for more help for us? Where can we go together to get help for you? These are much more open questions that lead to the kind of practical action that Jesus is talking about. In the parable of the sheep and the goats, Jesus is saying, these are the good neighbours who are welcomed into the kingdom of heaven with open arms. Because they asked the smart questions, they had the eyes that see, the heart that feels, hands that acted, and they fed the hungry and the thirsty. They invited in the stranger, visited the lonely, cared about those in prison, provided clothes for those who were naked. And the parable says that those who did this are going like, oh, we did? When did we do that? And Jesus says, whenever you did it, for any of your brothers and sisters, my brothers and sisters, regardless of whether they're a Jew or Samaritan, a red or a blue, a this or a that, whenever you did that for someone, you were doing it for me, to me. These are the eyes and the heart and the hands that I want to be a true neighbour, not only to my friends, to you, my friends here, but wherever God takes me. And it's not easy, and I struggle with it quite a lot. And I think if we're truthful, we all struggle with bits of it at different times. The bottom line is that we need to have the mindset of Jesus. And Philippians 2 sums it up like this. Don't let selfishness and prideful agendas take over. Embrace true humility. Lift your heads to extend love to others. Yeah, the team can come up. Get beyond yourself and protecting your own interests. Be sincere and secure your neighbour's interests first. In other words, adopt the mindset of Jesus the Anointed. Live with his attitude in your hearts as a true neighbour to everybody we encounter. Why did the Levite cross the road? Why did the priest cross the road? I don't know, and quite frankly, I don't really care. But I care very much that if I cross the road, I'm going toward the problem, not away from it. We're going to take some time to pray about this now because I believe it's something we can work on continually. As we celebrate the answers to prayer and the good things we've seen in the past, we need to stay alert for the present and the future. So perhaps you'd like to pray about one of those things, keeping your eyes open, keeping your heart soft, keeping your hands active. You might like to pray about something completely different, and that's totally fine. If the prayer team will be available to support you, and if you'd like to pray with somebody, feel free to come and connect with one of those people who are here. And if you would like to just spend some time with God on your own, feel free to come and kneel. This is always a great opportunity to just take a moment and think about what God's saying to you. And as the team sings this song, we'll have time to reflect. But just before that, I would like to share with you what God did in my heart when I thought about this. And this is something I wrote a while back about struggling with the pain that is in the world. It's a poem called Ouch. I felt a twinge. On the train, saw a sign. Online, read a rant, a pouring out of pain. On the train, overheard a tense conversation. Overhead, graffiti, vituperation. I felt a twinge. How sad. Why so angry? Such pain. What's behind it all, I wonder? And I could leave it there at that momentary ouch, as I have often done before. But I sense for a moment the edge of a greater pain, the brush of a deeper bruise, the shadow of a piercing grief. And dimly I see, as through that foggy train window, the source of this twinge. For if I bear his name, how not his pain? How not his sorrow? Perhaps I've not yet known enough of his heart. For when I leave it there at that momentary ouch, I realise now how much I can miss. Brushing away exclusion's misery can dismiss the patience found in hope. Squashing down the stings of anger dampens my fire to seek justice. Avoiding all wrench of betrayal blinds me to the beauty of mercy. And shutting out deadening loss, I risk shutting out enduring, unconquerable love. For truly weeping with the weeper and laughing with the laugher is hunger and thirst for that which satisfies, for only him who satisfies. But I feed my hunger with the takeout of tolerance. And I suck down great draughts of ignorance and apathy. And I snack away on self-righteous indignation. And I don't even know I'm starving. But by his grace, the pins and needles of the Spirit spark again in my soul. I feel that twinge. And dare I leave it there? At that momentary ouch? Grab my preferred painkiller and live numb? Or dare I awake, accept the ache, and become my Father's daughter, fully alive? That's what I'll cross the road for. Won't you join us as we reflect and pray?